Welcome, everybody. Thursday, June 13th. John Aravosis here. Hello, YouTubers. Hello. Hello, everybody. Still look at my camera. I'm always having to adjust the camera a little bit. See, if I adjust too far, then it goes too far. But I think that's pretty good. All right. A little bit this way, maybe. Good enough. All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to get started on TikTok here. Anyway, how are we all doing? I know you're probably having to go through the ad first. Sorry. All right, TikTokers. Boom, boom. All right. We're ready on TikTok too. Woo. Hello, all. How are we doing today? Hey, TikTokers. How is everyone? Happy Thursday. Oh, that's right. It's Thursday. I'm like already spacing out. We've got our coffee talk this weekend. We do. All right. Put it in my notes so I remember to tell you guys. Oh, hello, all. Hey, TikTokers. Hey, Paprika. I was preparing. What do you want me to do? It takes a little bit of work to prepare the show. What do you want me to do? Hello all. Hey, Elizabeth. Thank you for the gift on TikTok. Anyway, hey guys. Hey, Ryan in the UK, Spain, Norway, trash, lovely. Yeah, give a quick shout out where you guys are again. I always like that. Hey, John for the gift, Linka, Kevin. So where are y'all? Where are you all? Let me know. Let me know. Norway, Missouri. And we do this also, thank you, Hannah and Derek, because, I like to take maybe half a minute, 45 seconds or so for people. Sasha, please stop. No more. God, my dog is begging treats again. But I like to sort of maybe take half a minute or so just to let people arrive because it takes a little bit of time. Thank you, Mark Starr. Driving your tractor trailer through Ohio. Don't type. Don't type. Don't get me in trouble. Hey, Elizabeth. Thank you for the gift. Jens in Sweden. Eric in Sweden. That's right. We've got a couple Swedes here. Actually, and on TikTok, we usually have Eva from Sweden. We have a lot of Swedes. We like our Swedes. Hey, Succeed. I've been to Sweden twice. Loved it. Very expensive. Loved it, but very expensive. Pashkaren, you're in Sweden too. Yeah. But I did like Sweden a lot. Like I said, it was just so freaking expensive as an American. I did not get any hunting done. I don't really like hunting. As a kid, I liked hunting. Like as a teenager, as an adult, it makes me feel creepy. I like animals too much. Like I don't want to shoot animals, so no. I did get charged by a moose when I was in Alaska. That was a lot of fun. That I got hunted by an animal. So if that counts, but I didn't hunt any animals. No. Anyway, welcome everybody. So yes, I will start the show. I am John Aravosis. Yes, this is my t-shirt I made myself. And I know on TikTok, it can mess up the comments sometimes. Sorry, I know when I wear white t-shirts, but what do you do? But this is my t-shirt that I actually made with an iron-on. I actually took a picture of a real Vishivanka that I had that led one of the ones we auctioned for you guys, I think. Or this may even be the one that Harley, I think, bought for me. But it's a picture I took with my good camera of a real Vishivanka. I then I edited it in Photoshop and then printed it on one of those iron-ons and ironed it onto my t-shirt. But it actually ended up, it's pretty cool, isn't it? Like, I like the tassels especially. Look at are the tassels not the wildest thing? And again, because it's a real photo, it actually worked, which I think is really cool. Anyway, so welcome everybody. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. This is my nightly show I do. Hey, Anderson in Latvia. And Shebug with the gift on TikTok. Thank you. This is my nightly show I do Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern, where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. We sometimes get into the American election stuff because how do you not, But nonetheless, we shall see. I am good. Syndicate, how are you? Thank you, Jane, for the gift. I'm glad to see Syndicate back with us. Can we tell people your impending surprise, Syndicate? I never want to speak out of turn for people. I'll let you decide if you okay. Syndicate is having a baby like in 3 weeks or so. So one of our mods, well, Syndicate's a moderator, but also Syndicate's the guy who set up my entire Discord. He'd done a lot. He's been an amazing friend. Thank you, user 336. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, adventurers. And yeah, is having a baby in 3 weeks. Met his wife via the forum, which is pretty cool. We also have another couple with a baby coming that met through the forum. That one we're going to wait. Again, I don't tell these things. See, one of the good things you learn working in Washington, D.C. in politics is you learn not to, thank you, Vicky, for the gift, by the way. You learn to be careful with secrets because people tell you things, but you don't quite know if you're supposed to tell other people. So you learn to kind of check with people first and go, okay, is it okay for me to tell people yet? Right. So there you go. So that's why I like to check. Thank you, Katrina. So guys, welcome. This weekend, a little bit of business really quick. We've got our weekend show on Saturday. So join us on Saturday morning for the monthly subscribers. So to thank all of you who have become monthly subscribers, there's a lot of you on TikTok and a lot of you on YouTube both. I do a show every Saturday morning, almost every Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Saturday. Thank you, McFadge, for the gift. And it is exclusively for the monthly subscribers on TikTok and the monthly subscribers on YouTube. The mods can tell you how to do it. So if you want to join us, please do. Those of you, by the way, on TikTok, those of you who have SNN written next to your name, like you see how Adventures with Crystals has SNN, Marie has SNN. SNN is, well, Sasha News Network. It's a joke about the name of my dog, but that means you're a monthly subscriber. Now, on TikTok, you may have paid for it yourself, or somebody may have given it to you as a gift for a month because you can give gift memberships. So either way, join us on Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern US. Same thing on YouTube. Anybody with a green name, mods are invited too, of course, with blue names. But anybody with a green name on YouTube, you're either a monthly subscriber because you paid for it or because someone gave you a gift for 1 month. So, all right, guys, Saturday morning, join us. It's fun. It's a fun hangout. All right, let's get rolling here. So a good amount of news today. I'd say a mixed bag of news. Nothing, what's interesting lately is we're not getting the bad news we get from Ukraine is Russia behaving badly. It is not Ukraine in trouble, which is good. Thank you, Kano. The news has gotten better. Thank you, Martin, as well. I had a gut feeling in the last week things were getting better, and we're hearing more and more from NATO officials, including U.S. Defense Secretary I'm going to mention today, that things have been stabilized in the Northeast, which is nice. I suspect in part this is because of Ukraine now being able to hit inside Russia with NATO weapons. Any case, but let's get rolling here, okay? A NATO official has said that Russian forces, actually, I forgot the way I normally start. It is day 840 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. We've got to start with that. A NATO official has said that Russian forces suffered tremendous losses during their attack on Kharkiv in the last month or two. Thank you, Lamb Chop. That's the big attack. Let me get my map. Northeastern Ukraine. The Russians were causing a lot of concern right up here around Kharkiv. Here's Kharkiv, second largest city in Ukraine. A lot of concern up here. They were starting to take over some small towns. And, some people were even worried, does it put Kharkiv in danger? Because Kharkiv is less than, 20 miles, 30 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. I mean, or 15 miles. It's only a very, very small distance. Well, according to a top NATO official, the Russians were losing 1,000 men a day, not just losing, getting killed. Okay, so not just casualties. The Russians were losing, 1,000 Russian troops per day were being killed in the battle for Kharkiv, which was great news for Ukraine, horrible news for Russia. The NATO official said that is an astronomical figure. You don't lose 1,000 troops a day. You don't. Bad news for Russia, good news for Ukraine. Backs up what we were hearing. The Ukrainians were saying that the Russians were suffering horrific losses. Now, the problem is the Russians don't mind suffering horrific losses. Their public, I think, does, but Putin is a dictator. He doesn't care. What they've also done is they've used a lot of, thank you, Brian, a lot of people from developing countries to take on those losses. Africans, Sri Lanka, Nepalese, India. I'm going to be talking today about the India story again. We've talked about a lot of these guys in the last week, how the Russians, thank you, Rocco, the Russians have not only, and thank you, Brian, for the gift, the Russians have not only coerced people from these developing countries to fight for them in the Russian military, they've tricked a lot of them by telling them, for example, that they would give them only administrative jobs, like desk jobs. And then they joined and they sent them to the front, right? Thank you, Brian, for the bracelet. The other thing the Russians do, which is pretty horrific, and they do it typically, again, with Africans, Nepalese, Sri Lanka, right? Indians, anybody who isn't Russian. Or Russian, actually, they do it with Russian criminals. If they get Russian criminals, they emptied out the prisons and sent them as well. Thank you, Barry. But the Russians basically take them and throw them at the front. They use them as cannon fodder, the expression, meaning they literally throw these guys at the front and get them killed. Thank you, Barry. Like imagine, picking up your gun and running straight on into the Ukrainians to get mowed down. It's what the Russians do. And of course, they don't use the Russian troops to do it. Either they use, if they're Russians, they use prisoners, or they use men from developing countries, because that's what Russia does. So pretty horrific story. Okay, some other good news. This was interesting, actually. A quick little analysis from the Center for European Policy Analysis, CEPA. They're a think tank here in Washington, D.C. Thank you, adventurers. Thank you, Vicky, for the gifts. And CEPA said today, we were talking the last few days about how the Ukrainians have been hitting a lot of Russian anti-aircraft facilities. Thank you, Barry and Adventurers, for the gifts too. If I missed you guys, thank you, Elizabeth. Have been hitting a lot of anti-aircraft missile systems in Crimea. They've gone after 2 S-400s. They've gone after 3 S-300s, destroyed several of them, damaged others in the last week. This is a big deal. S-400s in particular are a huge deal, because the S-400s, the price tag is anywhere from $500 million with a B to $1.2 billion. Okay, for each of these systems, Ukraine destroyed one earlier this year. They just destroyed another one in the last couple of days. They're doing a lot of damage. Well, what CEPA came out and said, which was interesting because we were talking about this ourselves, like, why were the Ukrainians doing this? Meaning, typically in war, just like in politics or business or anywhere else, you don't just do things randomly. You have a plan, right? And you say, okay, in a few months, we want to attack this area or something. So for the next few months, let's hit that area and take out the defensive weapons, take out the anti-aircraft weapons, right? You're planning for something else. It's called shaping in the military. Well, what CEPA said was one of the theories we had, they think is correct, that the Ukrainians are basically preparing for the arrival of the F-16s. The F-16s, some of them are going to be arriving this summer, maybe by August. We don't know when exactly. We don't know how many are arriving, right? I mean, this is all kind of a mystery. But the thinking is that the Ukrainians are trying to soften up Crimea, take out the anti-aircraft weapons so that the F-16s will have a better time, safer time attacking the peninsula. So anyway, I just thought that was very interesting. Somebody did mention up above, which is a good point, Dr. Oidman, I'm going to call you Oidman, the S-500. The Russians have a new anti-aircraft missile system called the S-500. Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Rusty, for the gifts that they've just deployed near the Kerch Bridge. The Kerch Bridge is the big bridge in southern Ukraine that Putin had built. It's his, pride and joy. I think they built it 2018, maybe 2019. And thank you, Colin, for the rose. Built down here to connect occupied Crimea. This is all Ukrainian territory, the yellow. Occupied by the Russians, and they wanted to connect it to Russia, which is over here. Russia's also over here, but it's over here. And Putin wanted to connect it in order to better help defend the area from the Ukrainians. Thank you, Annette, for the gift. Thank you, Colin. So the Russians have put an S-500 anti-aircraft, anti-missile battery in the area there. It is a new system. I always tell you guys, I am not a defense guy. I'm a foreign policy expert. Thank you, Sean. But I will, tell you what I know. Kevin says it's the only one they have. He believes it's supposed to be a new super duper air defense system, meaning any planes, any drones, any missiles, it'll take them out, blah, blah, blah. Well, I was talking to Callum about it today, former British military. Callum was telling me it has not really been tested that much. That sort of the thinking, thank you, family, Lavery, for the gift. The thinking is, shrubbery. That's very funny, though. The thinking is that the Russians kind of rushed it out there, and they put it near the Kerch Bridge because they're afraid of the Ukrainians attacking it, but it's really not clear that it works. I was also talking to Callum about, how long until the Ukrainians basically blow this thing up, which they very well may. So thank you, Monica. That's something to keep an eye on. If you see reported in the news that the Ukrainians have struck an S-500, S-500, give a big eureka, because it's going to be funny as hell. All right. Let's move on. Ukraine's Special Operations Forces attacked Russia's newest digital radio relay communication station for the first time since the beginning of the war. It is a station designed to improve the efficiency of radio relay units in the field. As a result of the attack, communications between the command post and Russian army units was disrupted. So just small story, but I like to sort of give you guys the positive stuff. More positive news. U.S. Secretary of Defense Austin says Russia's offensive in the northeast near Kharkiv is slowing down and stabilizing. This is something that we knew more or less was happening, but it's good to hear him saying it. He says, what I see is a slowing of the Russians' advance and a stabilizing of that particular piece of the front. A couple of weeks ago, there was concern that we would see a significant breakthrough on the part of the Russians. I don't think we'll see that going forward. So that was good. President Zelensky today is at the G7 summit in Italy. The G7 is a meeting of the world's top democracies' economy. They're basically top economies who are democracies, typically. It includes, I wrote it down because I didn't want to screw it up, US, Canada, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and Italy's hosting. All the leaders are there. Biden's there. Zelensky Zelensky was invited. He didn't show up. And they signed a number of bilateral agreements, with the US, with Italy, with Japan. I don't know if they signed one with Italy. They signed one with Japan and the US right then. Italy did provide a new aid package, which was great. Their prime minister has been very supportive, which is wonderful. The Brits provided an additional aid package of 240 million pounds. Canada unveiled a new aid package. The Canadian prime minister is there as well. So across the board, good meeting. Zelensky will be meeting tomorrow with the Pope. The Pope is going to attend the G7. Apparently, it's the first time the Pope has come to address the G7 summit, which is interesting. One assumes he's coming to talk about peace, as popes do. What else we got here? Slovenia. This was kind of a neat story. So Slovenia, I always get this. I don't get this wrong. I usually get this right, but I question myself. Slovenia, which is one of the former Yugoslavia countries, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Former Yugoslavia always confuses the hell out of me. So Yugoslavia fell apart after the Cold War and broke up into 6 countries, 5 or 6. And Slovenia is one of them. Well, the report today is that Slovenia secretly provided Ukraine with military supplies during the U.S. aid delay. So when U.S. weapons were cut off, when U.S. aid was cut off because Donald Trump ordered Republicans in Congress to basically kill all aid to Ukraine, and they did, which was a huge benefit for the Russians. The Russians literally publicly thanked Donald Trump for this. Huge benefit for the Russians, hugely undercut American efforts and American foreign policy in the area, hugely undercut our allies, the security of Europe, but that's Donald Trump. But Slovenia stepped in and sent 26 armored fighting vehicles, 3 infantry fighting vehicles, and a shipment of drones to Ukraine to step in and try to help out secretly, which was very cool. I like it. It's nice when you see sort of smaller countries that step up and try to help. I mean, the big ones, we want the big ones to help anyway. Thank you, Melissa. But I still think it's pretty cool, when other countries step in. Yes, Ash, I know Croatia was one of those countries too. Yes. Are you saying one of the countries that secretly helped out? Or are you simply saying it's part of former Yugoslavia, which I know? But in any case, let's continue. Oh, Melania, Slovenia. I always think she's Slovakia. Okay, she's Slovenia. Okay. Melania Trump is from Slovenia. I always think it's Slovakia when with her. Okay, that makes sense then. So Slovenians are the ones that make that dish she was talking about, like some kind of pizza or something she was talking about. There was some dish. I had to Google it and I was like, but they asked her about it and she said, oh yes, my family makes it or whatever. There's some famous dish. Thank you, Jamie. All right, let's keep going here. Oh, and by the way, guys, please keep the gifts coming. I always talk about, Callum is here. Good. I always talk about the gifts because it's important. I've been doing this full time since the war broke out. So over 2 years now, I do it full time. Basically, I pay my bills and I'm able to do this show because of your guys' support. So please, if you can, keep the gifts coming. I appreciate it. And also, if you can sign up for a monthly membership, I'd appreciate it. Or if you want to buy monthly memberships as a gift, thank you, Ginger. Thank you, Family Lavery. You can buy monthly memberships as gifts and give them, and they'll automatically go to people around the forum. And it'll, YouTube and TikTok will distribute it automatically, which is a nice way just to give somebody else. And it lets them try it out and maybe lets them kind of get to, thank you, Timothy, gets to try it out. Maybe they subscribe as well, which is nice. All right, a little more news. This is good. Argentina. So Argentina's got a new president. Yes, Argentina, it's a president. A new president, Milei, and he is kind of goofy, but very pro-Ukraine, very anti-Russia, which is great. He has now joined the Ramstein Group. The Ramstein Group is a group of 50 countries or so supportive of Ukraine. I believe basically senior officials from those countries get together like once a month to try to sort of plot Ukraine strategy and coordinate aid. Argentina has now joined the group, which is wonderful, just to basically get itself even more closely tied in with the other international coalition helping Ukraine, which is pretty cool. So that was very nice. Russia. So Russian hostage update. You guys all know that last year in March, so it's been over a year now, the Russians took a Wall Street Journal reporter hostage. They do this. They grab foreign nationals for any. There's really no rule of law in Russia. I mean, there is, but there isn't. They've got a whole rule of law, of course, courts and things. But honestly, the courts in Russia will do whatever the dictator wants, whatever Putin wants. Thank you, Clink, for the tiny Danny. And so what Putin does is he goes and he grabs foreign nationals and holds them hostage and then trades them. They convict them, tell them they're going to prison for 20 years or something, and then holds them hostage in exchange for actual Russian criminals who are being held abroad. And usually, for example, Brittany Griner, who is the basketball star, the female basketball star that the Russians took pretty much hostage, they traded her for this international arms merchant. Was he called the Merchant of Death or something? What did they call the guy? Guys, remember there was some name? This guy was renowned, horrific man, selling arms to terrorists in the Middle East. I mean, horrific guy. And we had to trade him, Merchant of Death. Thank you, Carly. We had to trade him for Brittany Griner. Well, they're doing the same thing now to the Wall Street Journal reporter, Evan Gershkovich. The Russians today referred his case to, no, it's Ukrainian. Oh, no, it's very Ukrainian. The Russians referred his case now to trial, and they're accusing the Wall Street Journal reporter of working for the CIA. There is a 0% chance that this Wall Street Journal reporter works for the CIA. The Russians, the line from the Russians was especially beautiful because it was literally something out of Moose and Squirrel. Gershkovich carried out the illegal actions using painstaking conspiratorial methods. It sounds like ancient Chinese secret, anybody who's old enough to know what I'm talking about. But painstaking conspiratorial methods. I mean, even the way they talk like supervillains. It's just the most craziest thing. So yes, thank you, IFIX, for the tiny Diny. The Russians are now accusing him of being a CIA spy. Part of the reason the Russians are going after him especially is the Russians cannot stand anybody of Russian ethnicity or close to it like Ukrainians who are successful outside of Russia. Julia Yoffe, I believe, was talking about this because her family is, I'm trying to remember her family is Moldovan or where, but that the Russian government gets very upset at obviously Russians who leave and do well, right? So Gershkovich's parents left the Soviet Union. And that's considered bad, right? Very bad, because let's face it, the Soviet Union is Russia today, same difference. So the Russian government doesn't like him. They don't like his parents because they left, and they don't like the kids of the people who left. So that's the other thing. The Russian government, and according to Julia Yoffe, whose family left the Soviet Union, the Russian government today, Putin, they can't stand the kids of Russians who left because they even consider the children traitors. So part of the reason they grabbed Gershkovich and took him hostage, the Wall Street Journal reporter, is because he is the children of Russian emigres, basically of people who left the Soviet Union. So very sad story, typical for Russia. What do you do? Sky News. So this is kind of an awful story. So there is some awful story today. There's some awful news, which, I got to tell you because it's important, but it's pretty crappy stuff. Sky News reports, thank you, Shebug, for the gift. Sky News reports that international legal experts say Russian forces deliberately used starvation of civilians as a military tactic during the 85-day siege of Mariupol in early 2022 when they first invaded Ukraine. Mariupol is the Ukrainian town down here. The Russians control it right now. Famous town. Thank you, Annette, for the gift. Famous town because this is the town where the Azov fighters were holed up in the steel plant. And remember, they were held up in the steel plant for like 2 or 3 months. 2,000 fighters fighting 14,000 Russians, and the Russians couldn't beat them. I mean, it was an amazing story. After 2 to 2.5 months, the Azov folks finally ran out of food and water and ammunition because they were literally held up in a steel plant being sieged. Zelensky ordered them to surrender at that point because they would have died. I mean, there was nothing left. They would have been killed. And he said, this is stupid now because you can't fight anymore. You might as well spare your lives and fight another day. That's why Mariupol is famous. Mariupol is also famous because you remember the Russians bombing the children when the theater, the drama theater that had the words children written on it in Russian, right? So that Russian bombers would know children were being housed there, and the Russians bombed it anyway. And they killed, according to Reuters, I think it was, they killed 600 people. So that's why Mariupol is famous. It was one of the sites of just incredible atrocities by the Russians. Well, a new study by a human rights organization, Global Rights Compliance, according to via Sky News, says that the Russians systematically attacked objects indispensable to the survival of the civilian population, such as food, water, energy, and access to healthcare, basically with the intent to starve the civilian population to death. The Russian troops cut off but here's the sick part. Not only did the Russians cut off basically food, water, and power for people would freeze to death in Mariupol, they cut off the evacuation routes. They wouldn't let people leave. They basically wanted them to stay there and die. This according to, again, in the International Human Rights Group. Starvation of civilians by depriving them of objects indispensable to their survival. We came across some horrific cases, said one of the legal advisors, where elderly people died in their own apartments from the lack of water or because they were cold and there was no heating inside. Two more stories, actually. Another story that is not a happy story. Thank you, Marcy. But we also have to have the unhappy stories too. I was mentioning this at the beginning of the show. India is livid with the Russians because the Russians duped a bunch of Indian men into fighting for the Russian military, which is horrific, right? Horrific. They've done this to the Nepalese. They've done this to the Sri Lankans. They've done this to Africans. A big story this week, thank you, Parda, on how the Russians basically tricked or coerced African students and guest workers from Africa in Russia into fighting for the Russians at the front. And just like they did with other minorities from developing countries, the Russians lied to a lot of them and told them, you're not going to get a combat job, don't worry, and then threw them at the front, these poor Africans. Well, this was from the BBC today. India says 2 of its nationals have been killed just recently fighting in the war. India has demanded the return of the bodies of the 2 killed fighting for the Russians, and has demanded that the Russians return the all the other Indian nationals who are fighting. The Russians have refused. I mean, and again, this gets interesting because India, unfortunately, is playing games here. And frankly, what goes around comes around here as far as the Indians are concerned. India refuses to take a position on the war. And if you refuse to take a position on the war, then you're supporting the bad guys, right? India, right, developing country, member of the big coalition of developing countries and this kind of crap, right? Biggest democracy in the world. And the Indians are basically really siding. I mean, honestly, they're siding with the Russians. I mean, by being quiet, by continuing to buy Russian goods, they're siding with the Russians. And their own men are basically getting totally effed up now by being drawn into the war. Well, a little bit more here. Dozens of Indians, this is from BBC, dozens of Indians have reportedly been duped by agents into fighting for Russian forces with the lure of money and a Russian passport. The BBC spoke to several of the Indians. Some said they were coerced into taking up combat roles in the Russian army. In May, Indian police arrested 4 people linked to a network of human traffickers on suspicion of luring luring young Indian men to Russia with the promises of jobs or education, only to force them to fight in Ukraine. Thank you, Courtney. Let me read that again because I saw Courtney's gift and I wanted to thank her. I don't want to screw this up. In May, Indian police arrested 4 people linked to a network of human traffickers on suspicion of luring young Indian men to Russia with the promise of jobs or education. They convinced the young Indians to go to Russia for work where they could make more money, or for school, right, where their school would be paid for or whatever, or better schooling, only to find them forced to fight in Ukraine. They told these Indian guys that we'll get you a really good job, or, Russian school wants you, scholarship, blah, blah, blah. And when they crossed the border, they grabbed them and put them into the Russian army and sent them to the front with Ukraine. I mean, guys, this is sick stuff. This is really sick stuff. At least 2 other Indians died earlier this year while fighting for the Russians. And then BBC notes that meanwhile, Nepal and Sri Lanka have warned their citizens not to be lured in by the false promise of human traffickers in recent months after it emerged that hundreds of their nationals were taking part in the war as mercenaries. At least 20 Nepalese have died and 16 Sri Lankans. What amazes me is how dishonest the Russians are in approaching this war, right? That they've been accused by the Sri Lankans, the Nepalese, the Indians. The Africans still haven't spoken up. Let's see when the Africans find their courage to actually defend their own citizens, right? That the Russians are abusing, but that they turn on all of their allies and do this kind of crap. I mean, it's the bravado, the narcissism, the I don't even know what else to call it. It is such, and again, developed countries don't do this. Russia likes to sort of put itself out there as, oh, we're so much more advanced than everybody else. Advanced countries don't do this. You don't trick people into joining your military. You don't put people in there by force, right? You don't lie to them. You certainly don't, my God. Imagine like any Western country inviting like foreign students to come for school or a job on purpose and lying to them with the intent that once they cross the border, you grab them and throw them in your military. I again, as like an American, I can't even imagine like a country so backwards that they would do something like that, or so immoral and unethical that they would do something like this. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. Any case, final story. The Russians threatened war with France today, and absolutely nobody cares, nor should they. Basically, I get so tired of that every day. Guys, we're 2.5 years into this war. The Russians have threatened war like 500 times. They've threatened nuclear war like 300 times. Have you seen a nuclear war? I've been looking. It's very nice out, warm, but not that kind of warm. They just bluff. All they do is bluff. I mean, by the 500th time that somebody's threatened to go to war with you, if they don't go to war with you, they're not going to war with you. So now they're pissed at France because France is doing a lot for Ukraine lately. They may have also gotten intelligence that the French are doing more. This could be an indication that something else is going on, right? That the Russians know France is about to do something else. But we know France is going to be sending military advisors to Ukraine, several hundred, in fact. Thank you, Annie. And the Russians are pissed. And they told the French, which I just thought this was hilarious. Thank you, Annie. Second gift. They told the French, you're getting too involved in the war, and you better be careful. Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Luis. You better be careful because there could be a direct military conflict between France and Russia. Guys, I mean, as Nancy Pelosi once famously said, hardy har har har. I mean, sure there will, okay? Russia better pray to God that there's no military conflict with France. Because if Russia goes to war with France, you know who else Russia goes to war with? All of NATO. The US, the Brits, the Italians, the Germans, right? The Poles, the Scandinavians, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, the Swedes, the Norwegians, the Finns. I mean, Russia is screwed if they go to war with France. Absolutely screwed, and they know. By the way, France has nuclear weapons. That's the other point too. It's not like even if France were on its own, that France would be. They've got nuclear weapons. This is total and utter bullshit from the Russians. Total and utter bullshit. And the thing that gets me, thank Florian, is, these are empty threats meant to buttress the Russian population. I always say like that scene in The Hunt for Red October when they blow up the sub. I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but it's been like 30 years. If you didn't see it, I'm not spoiling it for you at this point. At this point, you deserve to have it spoiled. But they blow up the sub, and all the Russian troops think, yay, the captain blew himself up as heroic, which was nothing of the sort. That's kind of what Russia does. They threaten war so that, first of all, people at home go, yay, not knowing that your government is terrified of going to war with us because they know we'd kick your ass. The second thing they're doing is they're trying to scare the hell out of all of you. And we've talked about this before. And people ask the question and say, oh my God, is there a chance of war with Russia? They want to scare the hell out of you so that you stop supporting Ukraine. Because if you keep supporting Ukraine, Russia's screwed. Russia does not know how to get out of this war. Russia does not know how to win this war. Thank you, Damien, for the lightning bolts. They don't know how to win this war. Guys, Ukraine is in a tough situation, right? How do the Ukrainians win this war? I don't know at this point, right? Let's see. More weapons we give them, everything else. But it's a tough situation for Ukraine. The problem is it's also a tough situation for Russia. How does Russia end the war, right? Thank you, Blue Ariel, right? How does Russia get out? mean, the Ukrainians are going to keep fighting for their land. And as long as we keep supporting the Ukrainians, they're going to keep bombing the Russians, the Russian troops, right? So how does Russia get out? They can't get out. This has officially become a quagmire for Russia. And they need to do whatever they can to stop the war. And the only way they can stop the war is by convincing us, by convincing us to no longer support Ukraine. And the way they're going to do it is by convincing all of you, oh, we're going to attack you. And you're all going to go, oh my God, no. Okay, we'll stop helping Ukraine. Except you don't realize, thank you, Mike and Heidi, for the gifts. You don't realize, or they're hoping you don't realize, and thank you, PC Noel, as well. They're hoping you don't realize that basically Russia is threatening from a position of weakness, because the only person that fears war with Russia and NATO more than us is Russia. The Russians are terrified of going to war with us because they know they'd lose. And again, I don't say that as bravado. I say that as talk to any of the military experts and they will tell you, yeah, war with Russia would be costly. Of course, no one wants war with Russia. Thank you, Shelley. But would we win? Oh, hell yeah. We would destroy them. And if they use nukes, we use nukes, so they die. Then we all die anyway, so they're not going to use nukes. Thank you, Family Lavery. The Russians are terrified of going to war with us. Yes, I don't want nukes either, Azim. I'm with you. But they're terrified of going to war with us. So every time they threaten, it's literally like the little guy that has no power threatening the big guy. I'm going to get you this time. And the big guy's going, okay, sure you are. So anyway, so there you go, guys. I'll mention the auctions again really quick. We do auctions every week over at Discord. The auctions end next Tuesday, so you got several days. But we basically, I get cool stuff from Ukraine, some other countries I've been to as well. I haven't been to Ukraine, but I get stuff shipped from Ukraine. And I auction the stuff off. Half the proceeds we send back to Ukraine to help out. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Red. Half the proceeds go to support me because I do this full time. So the show that I've been doing now for two years and a quarter, I guess. Thank you, Netlin. Thank you, Red. Thank you, Monica, all for the gifts. I've been doing this full time since the war started. This is my job. Nobody pays me. You guys pay me. So your gifts are how I pay the bills and keep doing the show. So one of the ways to sort of supplement that, but also help Ukraine, we've been auctioning stuff. As always, I will show you a couple things, not too many, of the auction stuff. You can find it over at our Discord community. Mods, maybe tell people how to get to Discord. But a couple examples. Actually, yeah, this is one that I really like. This is a T-shirt that Vlad got in Ukraine, sold by the Ukrainian military. The military actually was selling this as a fundraiser, and I think this is a double XL, so this is very big, XXL. For any of you big guys or gals out there, way too big for me. But it says, I believe in the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The Ukrainian Armed Forces are these letters like ZSU and video the Z, however you say ZSU, or however the hell you say it in Ukrainian. But very cool, Ukrainian trident on top. Is it? I doubt it's just Russian. It's probably Ukrainian too. Actually, let me ask for Ukrainian. Is this Ukrainian too? I doubt it's just Russian. The Ukrainians, by the way, speak Russian and Ukrainian both. But I would imagine they'd have a T-shirt in Ukrainian would be my guess. It's Ukrainian. That's what I thought. Yeah, there's no way the Ukrainian military is selling a T-shirt in Russian. Yeah, thanks, Adam. I assumed as much. But I figured I would double check. Because yeah, the Ukrainian military is not going to. The only way they would sell a T-shirt in Russian is if literally it were the same word as the Ukrainian, right? The other stuff, we've got a bag full of Ukrainian candies and sweets that Vlad sent from Ukraine. That's very cool. 5 different things. Some peanut sort of brittle thing, a coconut thing, chocolate, a huge thing of halva. Anyway, kind of cool stuff. Vlad said these are some of his favorite sweets from Ukraine. Vlad is good. He should be joining us this weekend, Brian. He joined us last weekend on the Saturday show. So anybody who's the monthly members, come Saturday morning. Usually Vlad joins us. I mean, he doesn't always, but he did join us last weekend. I'll show you two more things. So one is this bracelet that I think is really pretty. I like these bracelets. This is another one Vlad got with his daughter. They're these bracelets made of, kind of woven leather, but they're very pretty. This has the Ukrainian trident on it. It's also got, I'll show you in a second, Ukrainian trident. Oh, there you go, Ukrainian trident. They're very pretty. I like them because they're very unisex, so like masculine or feminine. This one I think is kind of cool because I just think the back is kind of pretty. It's got a little like design on the backing. You see the copper or the bronze or whatever. I just think it's kind of pretty. I don't know if I can get it in focus enough for you guys. There you go. You can have the little radiant of the sun. Anyway, very pretty. but I just think these are kind of cool. The other one, I want 8 things. I won't show you all of them. Oh, and somebody just dropped a whole bunch of subscriptions. All right, thank you. Who did the subscription drop? Thank you, guys. Somebody on TikTok just bought 5 subscriptions that a bunch of you got. Thank you all. Excellent. So Katie, Vince, Brian, and Hellroth are 4 subscriptions. You guys just got a free subscription for a month from one of us who hopefully will out themselves shortly. So I know Blue Ariel. Blue Ariel always does that. Thank you, Blue Ariel. Very generous of you. He or she, I think he's a she. But I don't always know who people are here. I think Blue Ariel's a he. Always does that. Has been buying a lot of gift memberships. That means you guys can join us on the Saturday show. Oh, Dawn bought one too. Thank you, Dawn. Dawn's another one who's always very generous with this stuff. That means you can join us on the Saturday show if you want. It's Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Join us on TikTok. You get a membership for a month. Also, it gives you access to like some emojis and stuff too, which is just kind of goofy, but kind of fun, of my dog and moose and squirrel and a couple different things. The other cool thing, we got a number of cool things, but the other cool auction item, thank you, Eva of the chocolate. The other cool auction item we've got is this really cool piece of trench art from the Ukrainians. And I believe it's from Bakhmut. It is from a Russian BMP. It is a spent shell. So it's, ammunition that's been used. And the Ukrainians took it and carved the Ukrainian trident on it and an angel. And I just think I love these. I've gotten a number of them. This is the last one I've got I may try to buy more. It's the last one I've got for now. But it's neat, first of all, because it stands up, which I like, because you could literally put this on a shelf or something and it would just stand there. The other thing we sort of figured out was, I think this would be really cool. It could either fit a votive candle. It might be a little skinny for a votive candle, but you could probably put a real candle in here because it's metal, right? Like it'll just protect itself. I think a candle in here would be absolutely stunning. Any case, this one is always super popular, so do go check this out too. I've got a number of other items. Go check them out, but go check them out. You obtained 1 limited emote from Subwave. Okay, because a number of you bought subscriptions, there's some new emoji you can use or something. I'm going to guess it's the subscribers. Subscribers, go check, see if there's a new emoji. They gave you some extra emoji you can use. TikTok is claiming. Da, da, da. All right. Oh, I threw this in without covering it up. All right, guys, let's hang out. Thank you, Kronos. Thank you, Rose. This is the part of the show we do the hangout. Hey, Ginger. We do have good people here. I know. I was telling somebody about this today. I ran into actually a very interesting woman I ran into today, who's a former U.S. ambassador. Thank you, Netlid. And I will say this: I've never liked Washington D.C. I've actually always hated this town. I've lived here since the 1980s. I hate this town in many ways. Thank you, Bobby. But one of the neat things about D.C. is you run into very interesting people. I'll double check, Joshua. Maybe mods, let me know later if there's an emoji I've got to unlock. Maybe let me know in the Discord chat. But I ran into a former U.S. ambassador who was really cool, really interesting. And a woman, obviously very accomplished, and just very interesting. And I sort of enjoy that kind of stuff. Like as much as I don't like DC, you meet such interesting people. And it was just really fun talking. So we're going to hopefully have coffee one of these days. But I just thought I'd mention it because I was sort of excited because it was such a fun conversation. It's fun to talk to people who share your interest, but also are so accomplished and interesting and smart. And anyway, it was very fun. So anyway, all right, guys, let's hang out. This is the part of the show where we hang out, we talk, you ask questions, you give me your comments. But because I am looking at the screen, there's a much better chance I will see your comments now. The earlier part of the show, thank you, Eva. The earlier part of the show, I'm sort of going through the news, so it's harder for me to sort of see what's going on. Russian banks, Blue Ariel, I looked into this. I am not the economics expert, but the U.S. and the European Union put extra sanctions on Russia in the last day. It caused havoc with currency trading in Russia, with basically trading of dollars and euros, caused absolute havoc, shut it down, made it more expensive to trade them, didn't cut it off entirely, did not make it so that Russians can no longer hold Western currency, because a lot of Russians keep their money in dollars or euros because, the Russian economy sucks. I mean, it's doing okay. It's not, with the war, it's having bigger and bigger problems, but also it's Russia, right? It's not exactly, it's Russia. I mean, it's not the West, right? If you keep your money in rubles, you have a much greater risk than if you keep your money in dollars or euros. We are developed, stable countries. Russia is not. So it caused havoc with the currency trading. But I don't know. I read some articles on what it means, and frankly, it confused the hell out of me because it doesn't really stop people from holding the money, etc. Um, so that was funny. Actually, somebody asked, Jason asked, what's the exchange rate right now? There's a joke I saw today, Jason, that said, what's the difference between a dollar and a ruble? And the answer was $1. Which made me, you got to think about it for a second, which basically means the ruble is now worthless. Because the difference between a ruble and a dollar is $1. It made me laugh. I thought it was very funny. Bash Brannigan has a super chat question. Would you visit Ukraine before the end of the war? I'd like to, Bash. A couple different things. I have, it's not easy because I've got to sort of figure out when and how I would do it. Right. And I'm not sure what that would be. Because honestly, having a dog throws all of this into sort of chaos because I'd have to have somebody take care of my dog. And that's not easy. Like my mom used to be my go-to. Mom's 94. She can't take care of the dog anymore. My sister helps, but my sister's moving soon. That's not going to be as easy. So I kind of have to see. The other thing is, I still worry a little bit about the safety of going to Ukraine, but that hasn't even been as important as I honestly don't know how the hell to take care of my dog and if I go to Ukraine, I'd probably go for 2 weeks. I wouldn't want to go for a week. That would be stupid. Right. So if I go for 2 weeks, I'm not quite sure what to do with my dog. So we will see, but I'm being totally honest with you. That's sort of been that and just worrying about safety a little bit, User 909 says stats showed at the end of the 2023, Russia occupied 13% of Ukraine's land. I don't think that's correct. For a long time now, Russia has occupied around 18% of Ukraine's land. What happened was Russia already had occupied some land like Crimea, right? That they invaded in 2014. They invade again in 2022, and they took a lot of land when they reinvaded. They ended up occupying about 36% of Ukraine, give or take. Okay. Russia invades. Oh, do I have my little pointer. Oops. Hello. My little pointer that my mom gave me. This was my dad's, I believe. Yeah. Yes. Cause it's one of his, he used to be a big executive at International Harvester, but it's the DT-466, which must've been some big engine of theirs. So Russia invades and they basically, I'm not going to get this totally right, but they come down here and pretty much, okay, this is all Russia. This is Belarus, Russian dictatorial ally. The Russians come down and pretty much are occupying a lot of this area. So all up here, they don't get to Kharkiv itself, but they're occupying a lot of this area too. And down here too. The Ukrainians took back kind of all of this, like all of this on top, all of this up here, Ukrainians took back. In the end, Ukraine took back 50% of its territory. So as much as I get upset at Western support not being as big as it should be right now, we helped Ukraine get half of its country back, or half of the occupied lands back. But yeah, user 909, the number I always see is 17 or 18% of Ukraine is occupied by the Russians. That's the number I've always seen. And it hasn't changed much because not much has happened in the last year. The Ukrainians got a couple little places back. The Russians got a couple, like lately, the Russians got a couple small villages. It's not moving much at all. The new security guarantee is not going to be binding at all, Annette. So the problem, and Annette's talking about the new American security guarantee that Biden did with Zelensky. And the problem is, if Trump comes in, he cancels the whole thing. That's it. Thank you, Nicholas. So, the deal is nice if Biden gets reelected. If Trump gets reelected, Trump's going to probably do what he did before. Trump killed aid to Ukraine for 6 months. Literally. Trump supports Putin. He doesn't support Ukraine. He doesn't support America's allies. He doesn't support Europe. Trump urged Putin to invade Europe, actually, a couple months ago. Trump is going to, we should believe that Trump is going to cut off all aid to Ukraine and hand the country over to Vladimir Putin because it's what he promised he was going to do. And it's what he did for the 6 months. Up until 2 months ago, Donald Trump cut off all American aid to Ukraine. It's a fact. Okay. It's a fact. He told MAGA Republicans to do it. They cut off the money. So we should assume he's going to do it again. So this security guarantee for Ukraine from the Americans is out the window if Trump gets elected. Also, American promises to defend NATO are out the window if Trump gets elected again, which is really scary because honestly, guys, Europeans can no longer count on America. And this is too bad, but the Republican Party has shown that they don't believe in America anymore. They don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in projecting American democracy abroad. They don't believe in helping democracy. They don't believe in defending our allies. They don't believe in any of this stuff. All the stuff they claim to believe in, they don't anymore. So our NATO commitment means absolutely nothing, which is dangerous as hell for Europe and Putin, because Putin knows if Trump gets back in, all bets are off. If he decides to attack Poland or Scandinavia or anywhere else, the Baltic states, it's very scary. It's very scary. Anyway, well, no, they're not all like that, Republicans. But the problem is, guess who runs the party? And they all support Trump. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter if some Republicans don't support evil. If you vote for evil, then you're guilty. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't, I'm not going to defend them anymore. There's a small number of Republicans who don't support Trump. Well, congratulations. I mean, that's great, but majority of your party does. So, what do you do? Anyway, Nomad, the problem is, Nomad says, am I wrong for being okay with the NATO issue? We're one of the only ones meeting the requirements. The NATO thing is complicated in that, and Nomad raises a good point. Now, Trump, there's two things going on with Trump. One, Trump is in Vladimir Putin's pocket. That's the first problem, right? So Trump wants to cut off aid, because we don't give money. Nobody gives money to NATO. That's another thing. Trump thinks we give money to NATO. He still, by the way, he was president for 4 years. He still thinks people give money to NATO. That's not how it works, right? I will tell you in a second how it works. But Trump is in Vladimir Putin's pocket. Putin does not want NATO. NATO exists right now to stop the Russians from invading Europe. He wants to get rid of NATO. Putin does, and therefore Trump has said he wants to pull out of NATO too. That's the first problem. The second issue, and I think knowing Trump, it's a legitimate issue for Trump, but also he's a liar. I mean, he just wants to help Putin. You know what I mean? But and frankly, I think, okay, three things. One, Trump is in Putin's pocket. He wants to help Putin win the war. Two, Trump doesn't like the Europeans because the Europeans don't like Trump. Trump is all based on his narcissism, right? Trump doesn't do things based on American national interest. He does things based on Donald Trump, whether someone's going to put money in his pocket, thank you, Annette, or whether somebody has offended him in some way that he thinks. So Trump thinks the Europeans have offended him because the Europeans think he's a what's the word I'm looking for? Baboon, but I'm trying to find like a better word than a bore. But that he's like a low class trash. And they're right. So Trump can't stand that, and Trump doesn't want to defend them, right? So that's the second thing with Trump. The third thing, which Nomad brought up, is a valid point. Trump is upset at the Europeans because as of around 2004 or so, NATO allies made a commitment to each other that each country would spend at least 2% of its GDP, 2% of its economy on defense spending, right? So basically, your defense budget would be equal to 2% of your overall economy, right? Measured by your GDP, gross domestic product, it's called. Around half of NATO countries do that now, right? They give 2% or more, not give. They spend 2% or more of their economy on defense. The other half do not. And it's a valid point because it's basically, they are freeloading in economics, it's called freeloading. They're freeloading on the US. NATO countries know the big fish they need is the US. Now, there's other countries that are hugely important, right? The Poles are very important in the East. The Brits are very important, right? France and Germany, it's funny. I've had people differ on when I mention France and Germany. Sometimes people go, but they are two of the big powers, right? America, though, Canada is important, but America is the one that really matters because America is the one that Russia really doesn't want to go to war with, right? They don't want to go to war with the rest of Europe, but they really don't want to go to war with America because we'd kick them on our own. It is unfair that we are defending Europe and spending the money and they're not. A lot of the European countries. That's true. And that's fair. That's a fair point. The problem is Trump has openly urged Putin to invade Europe. I mean, he's done crazy stuff. He's done absolutely crazy stuff. He also says he wants to pull out of NATO. You know, it's the problem is, I mean, here's many problems here. If I'm Vladimir Putin, it does not seem like Donald Trump is bluffing. It seems like Donald Trump is telling the truth, that Donald Trump doesn't want to be in NATO. He doesn't want to defend our allies, right? That he literally, guys, he literally cut off aid to Ukraine for 6 months. Donald Trump killed all American aid to Ukraine. He ordered MAGA Republicans in Congress to cut off the money, and they did. So Donald Trump is not pretending about Ukraine and NATO. He's not pretending to support Putin, but it's all a bluff to get NATO to spend more money. He literally cut off American aid fighting Putin, right? So the problem is, he has already telegraphed to Putin. Thank you, Zeta. He's already telegraphed to Putin that he's not willing to stand up to him, but also he's in Putin's pocket. If I'm Putin, I'm looking at that and I'm making calculations about war in Europe. So my nose is itching for my allergies. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm making calculations about war in Europe. And I'm saying, if I invade Europe, Donald Trump's not going to do anything. There's a good chance he's not going to, right? I know my nose is itching, Danny. It's driving me crazy. I hate that. Sometimes this hasn't, I think because we're still in that summertime in DC, it's like, it just kicked in an hour into the show. So yeah. So it's very dangerous what he's done, unfortunately. Should we agree to let Argentina join NATO as an overseas ally? I have no idea. I'd have to know so much more about that. Oh, Steve, you're adorable. Steve is either a Russian troll or a Trumper. You must be a liberal, Steve says, because I want to defend American democracy abroad and fight America's enemies. Because I believe in using the U.S. military and defending democracy, promoting democracy, and fighting our enemies abroad and keeping them in check. That makes me a liberal? Dude, I don't know how old you are. My guess is you're a child, because if you were old enough, you would know. If you were old enough, you would know that used to be Republicans. Up until Donald Trump, Republicans were the ones who wanted to defend American democracy abroad. I should say democracy, not American democracy, but democracy abroad, who wanted to stand up to America's enemies. Now it's Democrats. You're right. I guess it is liberal to be strong on defense, to support the troops, to support democracy, and to stand up to America's enemies. Yes, that is, you were being a troll, but you're actually telling the truth. That is now what Democrats in America stand for, is standing up for America, our values, our allies, and standing up to America's enemies. You're right. That is, I guess that is what Democrats are now. And sadly, what Republicans do is they don't think America's great, right? I mean, Donald Trump keeps talking about how not great America is. They don't like the troops. Trump called our troops suckers and losers. They love America's enemies, like Putin. They hate America's friends. They don't believe in abiding by our international commitments to NATO, to South Korea. Trump wants to pull our troops out of South Korea. And of course, they believe we should have an open border. Right? Democrats were the ones that were the problem on immigration, right? Democrats were the ones who wanted the Latino vote, so they didn't want to clamp down on all the illegals crossing our border. Now it's Republicans. Donald Trump killed the deal to protect our southern border. You can Google this. It's all out there. There was a deal reached. Conservative Republican in the Senate came up with the deal. James Langford. I mean, crazy right-wing Republican deal. Democrats caved. I think because it's an election year. Democrats said, "Okay, fine, we'll do the horrific Republican immigration deal." Donald Trump said, "Oh my God, you can't solve the immigration problem because I can't run on it for president." Trump needs all the illegals crossing the border in order to accuse Biden of illegals crossing the border. Guys, this was all public. Several Republican senators came forward and said, Donald Trump killed the deal to help his election. Okay? Republicans don't believe in anything anymore that they claimed that they used to believe in. It's really sad. And I don't say undocumented because I think it's a bullshit word. Yeah, they're not undocumented. They're illegal. Undocumented is literally you lost your passport. You're undocumented. When you literally cross the border illegally in the country, you're illegal. I don't put up with stuff like that. And this is, I'm saying, like, I differ with liberal Democrats on this. Democrats are afraid to be strong on immigration. I'm happy to be strong on immigration. Nobody should be crossing our border illegally. It's bullshit. We have a process for people coming to this country, and we have so many people who can't come to this country, who want to, I know I've had friends who have wanted to immigrate to America and they couldn't come here because you can only let so many people in. We should not be letting people come in illegally when there's people from all over the world, from Africa, from Latin America, from Asia, you name it, who are dying to come to this country to have a better life. And we don't let them in because we've got too many coming in across from Mexico. That's bullshit. Yeah. So no, I will never. And the undocumented thing is total bullshit. I can't even believe they got the media to accept that term. The term in America, you're supposed to use the word undocumented now to mean illegal immigrants because it sounds better, right? Undocumented means, oh, you just don't have your documents. Well, no, you crossed the border illegally. Like, I mean, if I sneak into France and set up my home, I'm not undocumented. I literally am living illegally in France and I illegally crossed the border. I mean, I've wanted to live in Europe for so long, but I can't just cross the border illegally and do it. And I can't claim I'm undocumented. I'm not undocumented. I snuck across the freaking border. No, that's something, I mean, and I very much can be a Democrat at times, but on the immigration thing, Democrats are crazy. Democrats are absolutely crazy. Thank you, Mad Max. Anyway. All right. What else we got, guys? Enough of that stupid issue anyway. No, that's a good point, Traka. Yeah, Traka's been trying for 4 years to go through the process legally. Not a new mug. It's an old mug that one of you got me. I just have to get the Ukraine mug is in the cabinet. I've got to get it out again. But it's a mug that one of you got me like a year or two ago from Duluth, Michigan. And it's really cute. And it's a super like heavy duty mug too. It's like a very, very hardy kind of mug. And I just keep using it because it happens to be there. So anyway, no, Biden is not letting people cross the border. Biden actually helped shut down the border 2 weeks ago. Republicans refused to. Donald Trump killed the deal that would have helped shut down the border because Trump wanted illegals crossing the border through the election. Biden finally stepped up you can Google this, by the way. Biden finally stepped up 2 weeks ago and implemented the Republican plan, but he actually made it twice as tough. The Republican plan would have let in 5,000 people illegally a day and this kind of stuff. Biden's plan said, nope, 2,500 a day. Did I not say Duluth, Minnesota? I thought I said Minnesota, Max. I should have said Minnesota because it's Minnesota. But yeah, so no, it's not It's not Joe Biden. Donald Trump's the one. Dante, doesn't answer all the questions because do you know how many questions are popping up on the screen? And I have my YouTube audience as well. That's why he doesn't answer all the questions because I can't see every question. And when I'm answering a question, guess what happens? Your questions scroll off the screen. Anyway, what else we got? Anything interesting today in Ukraine? Dude, I just talked for like 45 minutes about the news in Ukraine. Nothing about the F-16s. No. Nothing new on the F-16s. Again, hopefully coming in the next couple months. I mean, yeah, but it's not even undocumented, Sean. If you come here legally and stay, if you come here and you're supposed to leave under a tourist visa and you just skip town and stay, you're illegal. You're not undocumented. I mean, but seriously, I'm sorry, I don't want to get into the immigration thing again, but I'm supposed to look at you with sympathy. Now, the kids born here, that's a different story, right? If your parents came here illegally and you were born here and you grew up here as an American, I've got sympathy for you, right? We're going to send you back to Mexico when you don't even speak the language. You're American. That we absolutely have got to figure that out. But if you're here on a tourist visa and you just decide you're going to stay, we should kick your ass out. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you're undocumented. No, you're not. You're a criminal who decided. If I'm in France, when I go for vacation in Europe and I decide to just stay, I think it's horrific to claim, well, I was there legally and simply decided to stay. Yeah, I decided to become a criminal. Like, I can't do that in Europe. I'd love to do it in Europe. I'd love to live in Europe, but I can't do it legally. I mean, I also have to find a job, but I mean, my God. Thank you, Yorid. The hair is what the hair is. It just sort of does what it wants. Thank you, John Wesley. I know all about Project 2025 caps. The problem is it's such a huge thing that it's almost hard to get your head around. Trump has this huge project he's planning, his sort of agenda when he comes into office, if he wins again. And a lot of it is destroying the federal government. He wants to fire all federal employees. Guys, there's like millions of them. He wants to fire all federal employees because he says they're all liberals. And he's going to put MAGA supporters in every federal employee job in the country. Okay? It's insane. Thank you, Running. All the government aid, Social Security, right? For people who are retired, Medicare for seniors who are getting health benefits, the Department of Transportation, you name it. He wants to put political people in all of these departments, but in every job. So like you have a problem with Medicare, you have a problem with Social Security, you're going to have to call a Trump person who's a partisan to get your Social Security fixed. That's insane. Right? They all have to pass loyalty tests. No, it is the most dangerous, the most fascist, and I say fascist literally, proposal ever seen by an American president. Horrific, absolutely horrific. But we are talking about neo-fascism is what the Trump people want to bring. It is horrifically scary what he's talking about doing. And people don't care because honestly, it's a cult now. It's a cult, sadly. Gamer, I don't really care about it. I see Gamer on YouTube. We've talked about it before. I don't talk about it because it's kind of a Russian talking point. It's an example of Russia being incredibly weak and bluffing and trying to scare us. So I don't even talk about it. Well, Brian, we don't know if there's any F-16s yet in Ukraine. Officially, there are not. Some people think maybe there are a few because things keep happening that are really good for the Ukrainians that people are saying, could that have been an F-16? The only thing is, I would think if there were F-16s in Ukraine, somebody would see them. The Russians would take video and announce it or something, right? So I don't know. But I'm not going to believe that there's any F-16s there until we see them, Maybe. The other thing is, if they're not using the F-16s, they want to be careful because they don't want them just sitting there. Because if they're sitting there, the Russians could find them and bomb them, right? So there's that sort of concern as well, Well, Theo or Fee, depending what your name is, she's asking, I'm saying she because your name means like girl in French, but maybe that's not what you mean. The Swedes were going to provide fighter jets, Gripen fighter jets to the Ukrainians. Someone in NATO, by the way, has to be the Americans. Could have been the Germans, has to be the Americans. Someone in NATO, the Swedes said, well, our NATO allies told us they would prefer that we don't send Ukraine the fighter jets because it would be confusing. I'm paraphrasing here, but it would be confusing with Ukraine getting the F-16s too, and they should focus on one fighter jet. So the American, by the way, who's the one behind the F-16s? Us. The Americans weighed in and told the Swedes not to give Ukraine fighter jets. Now, here's the thing. The Swedes who owned the jets did not think that the Ukrainians couldn't handle two kinds of jets. The Swedes didn't say, we believe or we agree. The Swedes said our NATO allies told us that they don't think Ukraine can, so we're holding off. In other words, we don't agree and they made us do it. Thank you, Cuevas. We don't agree and they made us do it. Really, so that's what's up with the planes from Sweden, unfortunately. Really bad. Thank you, Cuevas. Thank you. Great look for the hearts. Very annoying. Very annoying. Yeah, Gamer Sonic, don't worry about Russian nuclear submarines. I'm going to give my nuclear submarine talk. Russia has nuclear submarines. They've got nukes on them. That's scary. Guess who else has nuclear submarines? Hello? Okay. Submarines that have nukes, that would be us. Guess who else has submarines that have nuclear weapons on them? The British and the French. If Russia were to launch its nuclear weapons at America, guess what would happen? The British, the French, and the Americans would launch their nuclear weapons from our submarines at Russia, and we would literally blow Russia off the face of the earth. I don't want to see that happen, but you know who else doesn't want to see that happen? The Russians don't want to see that. They don't want to see their country end. If Russia's nuclear submarine does anything, we will use ours and destroy them. The final point to reiterate here is it is next to impossible to find our submarines. So the Russians, we've got like, I don't know if the Americans have 14, 15 submarines. We've talked about this before. The Brits may have 5 or 6. The French may have 4. I don't know, something like that. It is next to impossible to find these submarines. And as Wild Hunt says, and our submarines work and our weapons work, it is impossible to find these things. If the Russians find a submarine or 2 of ours, that would be historic. Thank you, Fred. So we'd have 10 or 12 nuclear submarines, like nuclear weapon submarines in the Atlantic and the Pacific, and we would blow the crap out of the Russians. I don't want to see that happen. But it will happen if Russia were to attack us. Now, my point here isn't to scare you by saying, oh my God, there'd be a nuclear war. It's quite the opposite. Russia knows what I'm telling you. Putin knows what I'm telling you. He knows he can't use those submarines. He can't use them because we've got ours and we would destroy them. So it's part of literally the whole plan of Putin moving ships near Cuba is to scare people like you into going, oh my God, what's going on? This is scary. What's he doing? Because most people don't know all the other issue, Okay, that's just stupid. Subs are not a threat at all. Well, you might want to tell that to the to the folks behind the strategic triad. U.S. nuclear submarines are not a threat at all. Okay, Boris. Sure. I'm sure. I'm going to guess the U.S. Air Force isn't a threat at all either. It's like, okay, you keep telling yourself that. You keep telling yourself that. Oh, please. I don't care how many submarines Russia has. Our nuclear submarines will wipe Russia off the face of the earth. Okay. See, guys, but this is what the Russian trolls do, by the way. We've got a Russian troll here who Ash is about to get rid of, by the way. Ash, get rid of that person. Russia has 78 submarines. America has around 76. First of all, they're talking submarines overall, not nuclear missiles submarines, right? Oh my God, Russia has 2 more submarines than us, 76 to 78. Oh, it's the end of the world. Why do I care if that fact is even true? Why would I care if Russia has 78 submarines and we have 76? Pretty much, first of all, that's the same number, first of all. Second of all, Russian technology versus ours, make my day. Third of all, that's all submarines powered by nuclear energy. That's not submarines that have nuclear missiles on them. The submarines that have nuclear missiles, we've got a dozen or more, and they would destroy Russia if Russia attacked us. Fact. It's a fact. It's a fact. First of all, I doubt we have 78 nuclear submarines, or that they do either. But nonetheless, even if it were true, right? It's a fact. But again, that's the Russian troll talking point. They get freaked out. Does anybody who's more up on the military side of this? Mundashi is asking, what is the visibility of a submarine when underwater? Now, I'm told the Russian submarines are louder, but just how difficult is it to find a submarine? Actually, let me say this too, by the way. It's hard to find a ship on the water. Now, that's something I didn't completely appreciate. That we were talking about the Chinese, for example, and the Chinese, if war broke out with Taiwan, and the Chinese trying to take out our aircraft carriers. There was an interesting article I read a couple of weeks ago saying how it would be next to impossible for the Chinese to find our aircraft carriers. Thank you, not me, for the gift in the Pacific, because they just wouldn't be able to find them. And if they found them, they wouldn't be able to attack them because the aircraft carrier would move. That's a monstrous ship on top of the water. Yeah, trained dolphins, exactly. Thank you, Lucas Eck, for the hat. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, I see the Russian trolls are freaking out today. Ash, I'm sorry, you're busy today. Sorry. Although I've got a number of videos on TikTok today, and I've got more keyed up that the Russian trolls it's all the stories we talked about today, like the Russians abusing the Indians and stuff like that. The Russian trolls are just going to freak out about. So that's another good point that Papi Chulo made. If they can't handle Ukraine, how are they going to handle the U.S.? Guys, we're like in year 3 of this war. The Russians are not winning this war, okay, with Ukraine. So I'm looking here. What's my dog want? What do you want, dog? Are you behind me? You're somewhere. I don't know where you are, but you're somewhere. Russia's in year 3 of this war and is having a very difficult time winning this war against, no offense, Ukrainians, but against Ukraine, right? Relatively small country, relatively small military. Thank you, Papi Chulo, right? Relatively not as developed weapons what Ukraine had. Imagine what happens if they take on the U.S. military, the U.S. Marines, the U.S. Air Force, let alone the European Marines and the European Air Forces, right? But the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Marines, oh my God, right? We would, again, not only would we destroy them, the Russian government is terrified of going to war with us because they're not doing well in Ukraine. They're stuck in Ukraine and they're giving it all they've got. Imagine what would happen if we entered the war, you know? And yeah, and then if all of NATO, exactly what Kilroy said, if all of NATO entered too, America would destroy them to start with, but all of NATO, forget it. I mean, the Poles, the Scandinavians, the Norwegians, apparently the Norwegians are super good. A NATO friend of mine was telling me the Norwegians are like super good at winter warfare. Although I'm suspecting now that we have the Finns and the Swedes, they probably are too. But back then we didn't have them. And he was saying the Norwegians were like famous for their winter warfare skills and all of that in NATO. You are very welcome, Beleben. You know, I'm assuming the Swedes and the Finns are pretty crazy too, as far as what they can do with winter fighting. We know the Finns are. My God, the Finns killed, was it 250,000, 500,000 Russian troops back in the late 30s, early 40s when the Russians invaded. I mean, and because that was, I mean, like it was a crazy number of Russians who died. And that was back then. I'm sure the Finns have only gotten better since then. Yeah. The Finns in winter war legend. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, their reserves are huge too. Thank you, V, for the heart. Canada, well, again, all of NATO countries. I mean, we have got some pretty damn good military, across NATO. So. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Unknown is saying, I'm from Norway. I can confirm we're good at winter wars, but Finns is top notch. Yeah, this was a friend from NATO before Finland and Sweden had joined a few years ago, was telling me about the Norwegians. He was like, oh my God. He goes, because I was in exercise with the Norwegians. Oh my God. He goes, their winter warfare is like, oh my God. But exactly. Imagine the Finns and Swedes. I'm assuming Swedes because it's a winter country, but the Finns we know. And Finland's got an 800-mile border with the Russians, 1,200 kilometers. So the Russians are really not happy about the Finns. I mean, that was, the sort of biggest, and thank you, Bella Ben and Family Lavery for the gifts. One of the biggest mistakes for Putin of this entire war is convincing Finland and Sweden to join NATO. I mean, Finland's the worst. I mean, Sweden, I know Sweden's got like great fighter jets and things like that too, but the Finns have got an 800-mile border with Russia. I've got my map from Ava here. Check it out. I mean, horrific for Russia that this is now NATO. Okay. You've got, this is all of Russia. Okay. All of this here is Russia. You've got Ukraine down here. You've got Russia's ally dictator Belarus here. You've got Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, former hostages of Russia. This is Finland. This is the Finnish-Russian border. Okay. Here's previous NATO border with Russia. Here, down, actually, I don't think there's anything down here. Where's the, I'm sorry, here. Because you've got Kaliningrad, you've got here too. I'm kind of missing here. Down here, Turkey's over here. Turkey does not connect to Russia. Yeah, this additional border, basically we at least doubled our border with NATO and Russia by the Finns joining. I mean, this is horrific for Russia because the Finns were already somebody they had to keep an eye on. Now they're NATO. Now they're the enemy. All this land. I mean, it is, come on in. I can see the crap on your face again. The dog was outside eating leaves again. What a surprise. That's my girl. Oh, boy. Anyway, so yeah, huge disaster for the Russians that the Finns joined. I mean, my God. It just, like I said, they've got a whole border now that's a 800-mile, 1,200-kilometer border that is now a threat. Oh, well. Will Russia use nukes if we use them? In principle, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the assumption. The assumption should always be that if we nuke Russia, Russia's nuking us. Yes. And we should plan on that, which is why we shouldn't nuke Russia first. Thank you, Jonathan. But the same thing applies to the Russians. They know if they nuke us, we'll nuke them back. So if they're smart, and they are, okay, now the dog wants water. I'm getting the dog some water. The Russians aren't. Putin's not going to nuke us first. And we're not going to do it to him either. One second here. A little bit more. There you go. All right. All right. This is the part of the show where the dog gets thirsty. So it usually hits. Actually, we're going pretty late now. It usually hits around 7 o'clock, but we've been going almost an hour and a half now too. Thank you, Len, for the good evening. Anyway, I know Sasha. I do need Sasha hold music like dee 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 dee. That would be very funny. Well, Russia did send a lot of weapons to India. The other problem, Oscar, is not only did Russia send a lot of weapons to India, but Russia doesn't even have the weapons to send to India. So, like, India had bought a lot of weapons. Some weapon system I was reading back in 2018, and they needed like spare parts for the weapons. The Russians are supposed to provide them. They can't because they used them all, or they need them all for Ukraine. So Russia doesn't have any extra weapons to start with. It's crazy. Audrey wants to visit Western Ukraine with your friend from Kyiv. Oh, that'd be nice. Oh, hey, Andy. Thank you. I try to be good. So thank you. Appreciate that. Every night, 6 o'clock Eastern time, US. Every night, Monday to Friday, we do this. Sasha, that's enough for right now. Stop. I have my dog interruption. That's sort of my famous part of this show is my dog. Yes, I'm going to do a summary in about 2 seconds, Lars, because we've already been going almost an hour and a half, and that's usually my cutoff here. So now that is true. Timothy Leary says rusty rifles. The Russians sort of famously, their rifles were all rusted and stuff. Oh, you're in England. Oh, cool. Good. Well, early enough for you at least. Yeah, it's Washington, D.C. or New York City time. So I'm thinking you guys are probably 5 hours ahead. It's 7:30 in the evening here. I'm guessing it's 12:30. Oh, Tess, I spread the news about Russia because Russia's a dictatorship, hegemonic, and needs to be stopped. And Ukraine's doing it, and we're helping them do it. So that's why I spread the news about Russia, because I believe in freedom and democracy, and I believe in defending the little guy against big bad hegemons? Hegemons? Is it 5 hours? Okay. Is that the noun? Hegemon? Am I right or not? MNL deep dive, 7:26 a.m. means you're in Asia or Australia. Thank you, Ginger. Big swath though, because I know like I was in Indonesia, I was in Singapore, and it was all 12-hour difference. Hegemons, the noun, not hegemony, the noun. I mean the country. A hegemonic country. Would it be a hegemon? Thanks, Andy. For some reason, and thank you, Numenon. For some reason, in the back of my head, I'm thinking the word hegemon is an actual word, meaning a country that is hegemonic. Gunther's saying yes. Gunther, you looked it up, or you just like me have this crazy idea that hegemon's a word? I think it's a word. As long as somebody looked it up for me. I like words. I don't want to get them wrong, though. Hegemony is a different word. Yeah. Hegemony is the doctrine of like taking over the world or whatever. A hegemon is a country that practices hegemony. That's what a hegemon is. So a vocab lesson. I like vocab. I like English. I mean, I like all languages. As we said, I'm into languages anyway, but I've always enjoyed hegemon. It's a cool word, but I use it with you guys. I wouldn't exactly use the word hegemon in my day-to-day life. Because I think you'd look like kind of an asshole. Somebody just did there, JR, Hegemon. It's a great word, but I try not to word too many words. You know, words like that can sound kind of snotty, except it's a good word. I mean, but I consider you guys to be a pretty, I was going to say erudite audience. I'm using my big words, but they're good words. You know. Oh, that's fun, Jonathan. Good. Yeah, that's what Jonathan was saying, made friends with the White House staffer and can get one of those tours. Yeah, if you know somebody in the White House, you can get, well, there's two kinds of tours. You can get a tour throughout the day, which is nice because they can kind of walk around with you and like show you stuff and everything. If you come off at night, it's fabulous. Because at nighttime, after the president's gone to bed or gone to his room upstairs, or Trump 6 o'clock at night, but like at 10 o'clock at night, you can get a tour of the private areas of the main White House that nobody gets to go to. And we got to go and literally look into the Oval Office, the president's office. And they've got like a little string there or something that you don't cross. And there's the Secret Service there who's going to like shoot you if you do. But literally you can peer in and look around. It was so cool. But you're getting that one? Oh my God. Oh, good for you. Oh, I'm jealous now. I haven't done that in 30 years. Oh, that is so cool. Good for you. Oh, that's great. That's the neat tour. That's just because you're seeing the work areas that you only see if you go for meetings, and the Oval Office obviously is the big thing. Thank you, Pizdolies. So very cool. Google Translate knows hegemon. Good. It was cool. I'd like to go to Parliament. I've knocked there. I got the tour because twice we knew somebody in the White House. I mean, we had friends back when I was working in the U.S. Senate, and then a friend of mine working there like the last 8 years or so, or whenever under Obama and then Biden, was able to get us a tour when my Swedish friends were visiting. Actually, my Swedish friends were visiting, and I was able to get a tour for them and me, which was nice. And one of their interns gave us a tour of the White House, not the private areas, so to speak, right? Because this was during the day, but we still got to. I think it may be the same place the White House tours go. I never know about that. You know, the East Wing and all that stuff. It's where you go for the Christmas parties and the holiday parties. I like Swedish meatballs too. Yes, we'll do a final thing. This is my Vyshyvanka that I made. I will show people one more time. It's I took one of my t-shirts and I had a Vyshyvanka Ukrainian shirt that my friend Vlad had sent. We were auctioning these off, and I took a photo with my good Nikon of the Ukrainian shirt. So this is literally a photo I took of a real Ukrainian woven shirt, printed the photo on one of those things you can buy to transfer images onto t-shirts, and your printer prints it. So it printed it onto the sheet. I ironed it onto my t-shirt, and it worked like ridiculously. Look, my favorite of this one is look at the tassels. I mean, is that crazy? They're like, it looks like tassels. Anyway, I think it's so cool. Anyway, Iman, I haven't done anything. No, because I made it. And no t-shirt company will do it because I tried for the t-shirt companies. They don't go high enough. The t-shirt companies start here, which doesn't work for Vyshyvanka. It would look weird down here, right? Whereas up here, it almost looks like the collar. Well, that's an idea, Kim. I could potentially buy new t-shirts and print the design. That's an interesting idea. I will say it's a little scary because ironing these things and getting it straight is very difficult. The tassels look totally real, don't they? I know the tassels crack me up. I feel like I'm going like this and they should swing back and forth. Maybe I will make a few of these, but again, it's difficult because ironing it on and not having it crooked is extremely difficult. I got this one. This one's very close. Thank you, Dale. It's almost off a little bit. Now that's interesting. Joshua says the style is almost identical to West Africa. Well, it's interesting. I mean, somebody else was saying Palestinian too. I mean, Middle East. Thank you, JR. You know, I don't know enough of the stuff. Well, actually, you know what you make me think of with West Africa is some of the batik styles, for example. You know, I would think with some of the stuff. Anyway, that's an interesting idea. I know, Marie, it was scary though. Maybe if I pin it, because you have to have it just perfect the way it would be on you. You know what I could do? I could put the shirt on and have somebody maybe put pins on my shirt, right? So like if I put the shirt on and somebody puts a pin here and a pin here, we can maybe adjust it so we can see. A Berber, that's interesting. Is the Berbers, which is Morocco and elsewhere, I'm guessing. I mean, I know Morocco because I've been there twice, so I know the Berbers are from there. But yeah, it's a fun shirt. Maybe I will do that, guys. Maybe we'll do that. You know, let me see. The problem with t-shirts is the sizes are a bitch for auctioning t-shirts because like I'm a medium, but I never like mediums. When we've had t-shirts before, mediums often don't auction well. Maybe it's all, well, our audience isn't just Americans tend to be bigger, but our audience isn't just Americans. But knowing which size to buy is not easy. You know, because also I'd have to like these t-shirts are from Costco. They're very nice t-shirts. I mean, I love these because they maintain the look. They're beautiful t-shirts, but I'd have to buy like 5 of them. So I'm buying one size, and I don't know whether to get large, extra large, extra large. You know what I mean? I think bigger is better because typically when we auction, people want, I would say extra larges almost, is what people tended to want with the auctions, I think. But I'd have to think about that, you know, I'd have to think. I get mediums. So I mean, this is a medium for me, but I'm like 5'10", 160, American. So we'll see. Anyway, I think I will do it just for fun. But as I said, maybe I'll buy 2 sets of shirts, and maybe I could make 10 is kind of a lot to make, but because I don't want extras, because what am I going to do with extra large Costco t-shirts? But you're right. I could do orders. Who knows? But maybe I don't know if anyway, let's see. Actually, I'm going to do the quick summary of the news. Let me ask you guys quickly. So if I were to do the t-shirts, what sizes? I was at Vicky already jumped in. Large, extra large. What do you think? There's Black Dawn, but okay. Larger. We should do a poll. Okay. I'm going to say YouTube, do a poll. YouTube, just give me your answers. TikTok mods, do you want to set up a poll and ask, but set it for like 3 minutes or something, really, if you can. Large or extra large. Well, not large, extra large. Medium. Forget medium, because you know what? I've done medium before. Nobody wants mediums, Ken. I like medium. Nobody wants mediums. So I would put medium, large, extra large, XXL. And see what people say. I'm looking right now. There's a lot of extra larges, which I'm not surprised. Extra small, not going to happen, Elizabeth. 3XL, not going to happen, because I've got to get 5 of them. You can't really make them is the problem. It would be nice to make them. The problem is that when you make a t-shirt, the design starts here on t-shirts. It doesn't start up here. I was going to try to get them printed, and I couldn't get them printed. I mean, this is my photo. I could have gotten it printed, but it's here. And if the shirt starts here, or I'm trying to do this right, if the shirt starts here, it doesn't really work. I mean, you could have this, I guess, but that's not, I guess you could do this. I don't find this, if there's white above, I don't think it's as impressive as having the collar like that, Okay, Ash just started a poll. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, it's not going to show us the poll until it finishes. Okay. People vote in the poll on TikTok. YouTube, I'm going to keep looking. XL. I'm with you on medium, Gunther, but we're SOL on that one. Large. I'm going to guess extra large. You'd be surprised too. I was surprised the number, like, as Vlad in Ukraine would get us a lot of Ukrainian shirts. I was surprised or the sweatshirts, the number of people who wanted extra large, XXL, 2XL, and 3XL. I was surprised how many wanted that. Because I was thinking, I'm thinking 2XL is only going to be some enormous guy or something. I don't know. The number of people who wanted 2XL, I was very surprised. So that's a whole other question, I know medium is not going to work, Colin. You, me, and Gunther are mediums, and Colonel Mustard. And Callum would probably be an American medium too. These are nice too, because they don't shrink that much. No, that's what I'm saying. This is Costco t-shirts are the best freaking t-shirts. Now, they do have black too. That's the other question. I could buy black instead of white. That's an entirely other possibility. I have a number of their black shirts, which I love, because I wear the black, like the white one I wear as t-shirts in the summer as a shirt. The black ones I wear as a black t-shirt. And it's a black t-shirt. I could show you guys, like, they're literally, you don't look at it and think, oh, it's an undershirt. It's a black t-shirt. David says, I wear an XXL because I'm tall. Sure you are, David. I'm kidding. I'm kidding you. But that's the thing. People typically want white more, although I like black. But people do typically want white. Now, this would probably work out. Now, the only thing is the white might be see-through on here. So I don't know. Or honestly, the white is not see-through. The white on here, you might have a white border on. You probably would have a white border on here if you did it on a black shirt, which would be a problem. Yeah. Too clumsy for white. Well, my problem with white too is, like, literally I'll be eating dinner and I'm like spaghetti, forget it. You're going to get it all over you, right? Or even pizza, there's a risk. I agree. It's like, I put this on for the show. This is coming off right after the show. I'm not going to wear this like tonight. I'm just going to get it dirty. And I try to preserve this shirt. So, like, I wear it for stuff like this and then put it away. I'm trying to see, where is the stupid poll? Like for me, I mean, let me see. In progress. Oh, let me see if I can look. Oh, I can look in progress. Oh, here we go. So the poll, medium 29%, large 31%. Okay, this is not helpful. Extra large 29%. People are evenly split. I know represents a disaster now, moderate syndicate, and they also got rid of their best shirts. Even when they were still around, their best shirt model they got rid of, and then they started having crappy shirts, like the shirts you try on that look like they're made in God knows where. They used to have fabulous shirts before. This is interesting. Okay, the polls are changing a little now. Large is winning by a better margin. Guys, we've got another minute left on the poll on TikTok. This is what size t-shirt would you wear if I made t-shirts and I could only make one size? And just for the YouTube folks, like I said, large is ahead. Large is almost 33%, medium 28%, extra large 28%. But we need more people voting. I don't know how many we've had vote, but 61 votes. I want more votes. So anybody on TikTok, just do the poll at the bottom of the screen. I think it's at the bottom, maybe. Do the poll and just tell me what would your t-shirt size be if you were, interested in a t-shirt. Although I should say it's somebody who might be interested in a t-shirt, because if you're not interested, more larges, more extra larges. So there's still some extra. It's close. It's close. It's interesting to see. Yeah. Yeah, we can try the poll. Vicentica's right. We can try a poll on Discord as well. Medium is going. I'm telling you, during the auctions, medium does not sell in the auctions we do. A couple of us, like I said, me, Mustard, Callum, Gunther are mediums. Medium, okay, but best worst gamers is a medium too. Most of us are not. Most people are not mediums. Large does well. Mostly people have asked for extra large and XXL. Has been my experience. What I'm seeing with the poll on TikTok is extra large is 30%, XXL is 15%. So XXL, forget it right now. Here we go. Okay, the poll finished. I mean, medium 25%, large 29%, extra large 30%, not much difference. XXL, so 2XL, 15%. So it clearly is large and extra large. I think I'm trying to think how to phrase it, Syndicate. If John were to auction off t-shirts, what size would you wear, or what size would you want? Medium, large, extra. I would go from medium all the way to 2XL, because 3XL, there's no way 3XL is going to win if 2XL is down to 15. So I'd go from medium, large, extra large, 2XL, American size, and say American sizes. So if John were to auction off more t-shirts, what size would you wear? And let's see what people say. But yeah, that's very interesting. So it's large and extra large, which doesn't surprise me necessarily. Again, it's not enough. It's not enough of a sample though. So it's hard to, I mean, that's true. Okay. That's a funny point. Danny says I could print the transfers and sell those. That's actually true. Considering the photo is my photo, I could print the transfer and give it to you to apply. Now, that makes it less of a risk for me, right? Because I'm terrified. I'm terrified of printing these things myself, Ash started the poll again. Why did you start the poll again? Just curious. All right, we'll do it one more time just because. All right, vote one more. Ashley started the poll again. I'm not sure why, but what the hell? I'm sure she had a good reason. So vote one more time on TikTok if you would. We only have 7 votes. I think it's large and extra large, but I am intrigued by the idea of okay, just to try it again. Okay. I am intrigued by the idea of selling the design on the print, like me printing it out on the thing and then selling the actual printout, right? So that you guys get a t-shirt you like. Because also, if you're a girl and you want a V-neck that's a more woman's cut, or you want a super large size, that's an interesting idea. That is interesting about selling because also the transfer, like I said, is my image. So I'd rather not sell the image, but I'm selling the image by selling the transfer. That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. It works. I mean, like I said, it works wonderfully. But again, I don't wear this shirt a lot, so I'm careful about that. It's not like I wear this every day. I do wear it sometimes though. Well, is the design copyrighted in Ukraine? Good luck. I mean, it's a Vishivanka, It's a Vishivanka. I mean, good luck, you know. Do I wear eyeshadow? No, I'm Greek. More naturally hot. It's funny you say that though, because somebody said that in one of my videos. I answer you because somebody actually said that in one of my videos. And I looked at my video on TikTok and I said, it does look like I have eyeshadow, like underneath my eyes. Even now that I'm looking at TikTok, it looks like I've got a dark line under my eyes. I'm just Greek. We have hot dark eyes. What can I tell you? Yes. I am not a kind of guy that would wear eyeshadow. No, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I wouldn't. There's no way in hell I would wear eyeshadow. But yeah, but it is funny. I literally looked at the video once and went, "Oh my God, they're not kidding." It's a Mediterranean thing. Ash is saying, right? We have a lot of lucky things in our genes. I think that's one of them. The dark look is nice. The hair is fun. Typically, we look younger, which I think is true. Italians too. We often look younger, which is kind of knock on wood, you know. Oh my God, JD Vance. Yeah, I don't know what he was doing the other day. The Republican senator who wants to be Trump's vice president was literally wearing eyeliner the other day. There's no way. Thank you, Tom. It had to be eyeliner. I mean, it had to be eyeliner. You know. The catapult in Israel. I saw a photo of it. I don't know if it's real. I saw a photo of a trebuchet. They were saying, I don't know if it's real or not. I never know what to trust. Look, if I see a video or a photo coming from a reputable news service, I'll believe it. Let's put it that way. Guyliner. That's funny. Elisoni calls it. Is it real? Okay. Well, trebuchet. Interesting. Very medieval. Okay, good. Discord set up a poll on Discord. Syndicate set up a poll on Discord for the YouTubers or everybody else if you want to check it out. Trying to appeal to LGBT. Exactly. Interesting. Okay, Shahar. Yeah, I literally saw the picture and I saw some other people going, some of the people I trust on defense folks on Twitter going, like that's weird. But that's the only reason I said I like to be sure, because sometimes you see people sharing images and videos and they're just all fake. You know what I mean? But if it's shared by real people or a real news service, I should say, has verified it, then I'll believe it. Yeah. That's funny. I'll have to take a look. Okay. I should have looked. I don't know if it was, I think it was a video. I think it was an image. I don't think it was a video when I saw it. I saw it like in the background by a wall or something and a soldier in front, but I didn't see the actual, I'll look. I'm sure it'll be on my defense Twitter. I follow a lot of interesting defense people on Twitter. Anyway, so yes, there is a very good chance that I will send Gunther says selling the print saves on shipping. True, but yes, but it will require me to buy shipping envelopes to protect it. So that could be, I mean, it's not a big deal, but that could be $4 right there. So the mailing is a minimum of $4 and the envelope is another $4. So you're getting up to $8 anyway. T-shirts in America, at least the T-shirts are going to be $8, you know? Thank you, Gaia. Thank you, Derek, for the gifts. Now, Cecilia says, why do many people blame us for the Ukraine war? It depends who us is. Okay, another poll came up, large 32%, extra large 29. Let's see. Thank you, Dale. We'll have to see. Like I said, I may, thank you, Johnny, for the gift as well. I may just do the design. Gaia, or was it Gaia? It depends, not Gaia. Cecilia, it depends who you mean by us. USA. Many people do not blame the USA. Bad people blame the USA. The Russians blame the US. Russia's allies blame the US, and MAGA Republicans frankly hate America, blame the US. I mean, that's it, because they're in league with Putin. That's it. They're the people, literally anybody who blames the US is in league with Putin, period. You see fringe crazy people like that Varoufakis, or whatever the hell his name is in Greece, blames us. So the Greek, crazy left blames us, or far right, some of them too, probably, because the far right's in Putin's pocket too. In America, anybody who blames us are the crazy people. Either they're MAGA crazies or they're left-wing crazies, but I mean insane left-wing crazies. So I am, you know what? I'm not going to do a recap. Sorry, but only because we've been going an hour and 50 minutes, guys. Thank you, Johnny. I want to wrap it up. But they're doing it because why does anybody blame America? Usually it's because they don't like us. If they're domestic people, they've got a problem. And if they're international people, again, there are things we do wrong. I'm not saying that. Thank you, Johnny, for the gifts. But that's why they're blaming us on Ukraine. because they're Russia sympathizers, basically. UN story, not over my dead body, Russell. Someday you'll get another UN story. Not right now. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off because we've been doing this an hour and 50 minutes. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. I will not do the summary today. I am going to do a few more videos. I just did TikTok. Actually, I've got like 6 videos going up on TikTok tonight. So if you're on TikTok, feel free to check I've got 2 right now, more coming shortly. I may put a couple more on. I hear you, dog. 1 second. I may put a couple more on YouTube as well. We'll see. But yeah, and let me see about the iron-on. I do think the iron-on is an interesting idea rather than the shirt itself. I think it's a very interesting idea, Gunther. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Sorry, Tom. All right, guys, I'm going to go to bed. My dog is whining. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. The show is every Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern time, US. That's 6 o'clock New York City or Washington, D.C. time. We talk about Ukraine, but then we get into everything else too. US election, you name it. But typically we talk about Ukraine. And it's a fun hangout. So join us. Thank you for the gifts, guys. Thank you, moderators, for getting rid of the crazies. I know today was a particularly crazy night. We had a lot of Russia behaving badly news. And the Russian trolls get very upset when we report on that. So we had a lot of them tonight. Oh, well. I think it's kind of fun, to be honest. If I weren't trying to do the show, I would love to just zap. It's like, I feel like you're bug zappers. Like I'd be an electronic bug zapper going, tee, tee, tee. Anyway. All right. See you, 336. All right. See you guys. Thank you very much. See you all mañana. All right. Good night, everybody. I always do YouTube first. Burp. And TikTok. And TikTok.